Hi, this is Harriet Grayson, your host and producer of Community Culture Showcase. And today I thought I'd give you a kind of interesting lesson in the ancient game of Mahjong. And the mystery is, how did an ancient Chinese game become the passion of American Jewish women? I don't have the answer. But I thought I'd tell you about the game, how it's played, and my own recollections of how I remember seeing people playing this game over the decades. And I have the great advantage of having with me a very old case that someone has lent me, which was their mother's. So we're talking about, here on the table, is a game that's about more than 50 years old, has these beautiful yellow tiles, and there's 144 of these tiles. So we start out with a Chinese game that has been around for a long time and is today played all over Asia, as well as in all places where there are Chinese, Japanese, Korean people. They love to play this game, usually men, and it is considered a gambling game. There's some betting that goes on with the use of these tiles. I became fascinated with this game when I was a child because I remember my mother, this is not my mother's set, but this is a set of that vintage. My mother, who is going to be 99 years old, and our experiences in growing up in the community, in the beach communities around New York City, mainly Far Rockaway, and then on the Nassau County line, a little seaside community called Atlantic Beach. And my youth, we used to go to what we call beach clubs, not elaborate, beautiful clubs that you might see in other parts of the country, but these little clubs that had access to the Atlantic Ocean and swimming pools and lockers. In fact, if you ever had the opportunity to see a movie called Flamingo Boy, I think it's called, is about this cabana life, and that's how we grew up. We're going to this beach club, you go swimming in the ocean, you go swimming in the pool, and the ladies all would go all day long sometimes and play this game, Mahjong. And so that's my kind of recollection, and I didn't play until actually just recently, in the last month or so. I decided, after spending a childhood watching people play Mahjong, I decided that I would learn how to play. So I want to tell you about what's involved in this game because it's really quite fascinating. And then maybe you would have the answer about how did a game designed for Chinese men, rather an old game, adapted by the Japanese and the Koreans, came to America, and there you were. You had all these Jewish women playing Mahjong. In fact, there is a league of Mahjong people, and I guess the original history of it is that they were primarily Jewish women who got involved in this game. Now today, everybody, no religion required, plays Mahjong. So here's this beautiful old set, and you can see the birds. Birds have not really any major significance, but let's talk about the tiles. So these tiny little tiles. There's 144 tiles, and they are in, well, for lack of a better term, what we call like categories. So you have like sets of cards. So instead of like 12 of a suit, the suit here would be, in this case, is what we call crack, which I think stands for character. And here you see the Chinese letters. And then we go from a crack to a different category called, if you can see them, bamboo, bomb. And then finally we have the dots. And you see those big dots. And it goes from 1 to 9. Each of these suits go from 1 to 9. And then in addition, we have things like flowers, which are significant. The red thing over there a little bit further, this actually is directions, which they call winds. East, south, north, west. The red dot, the red tile, is actually kind of like a wild card, if you think about it in cards. And then a little bit more is the dragons. And the dragons are actually matched to these different suits. And they come in a green dragon, a red dragon, and a white dragon. So that's kind of the characteristics of the game. And unlike the Chinese version, we have these little sets, red on red, and you actually line the little tiles. You get 13 to play with, and you line them up. The Chinese version does not use this kind of setup, but for Jewish American women, this is the way we play Mahjong. And then you do have dice. Every game has a element of dice in it, and that's a kind of minor part of it. And it has this concept which is very Oriental or very Eastern, and that is this idea of the winds. So that's what the directions are: north, south, east, west. And you sit around a table. 4 people play. I have this kind of tablecloth, which has nothing to do with the game per se, but it has this Asian flavor to it, and it's just sort of part of this attitude and atmosphere that you have when we play Mahjong. And it's not required, but it's just something. And it's really, what I find it very attractive is it's a game of numbers, and you follow patterns with the numbers that are prescribed for you. So what you do is every year you go ahead and purchase from the National Mahjong League, which was created in the 1930s by primarily Jewish women. And you go ahead and you get one of these cards, and the cards actually prescribe the different kinds of sets that you need to have in order to win Mahjong. So it is very number oriented, which is, I think, very initially certainly Asian in concept. The Asian culture has a great respect for numbers. There are magic numbers. So there's that concept. So, and they come in different colors. And so you have kind of, they call it, it looks like black. It's not. It's blue, green, and red. So red is in Asian society. I always like to wear red. Red is luck, good luck. And the Asian societies have a great fascination with numbers and numerology. And I think that, I don't know, is the beginning and the origins of having a game like this. Now, what makes it kind of fascinating is that it can be played very fast, or in the case of people playing with me, because I'm a novice, it is playing slowly, and you try to create the patterns that are been prescribed for you. And there's lots of patterns. I mean, they come in, and again, it's like lots of things with numbers. I love it. So you would create, you can see 1 through 9, 3 different kinds of categories or suits. It's not, to me, it doesn't feel like a card game. It feels much more, maybe like a cross between dominoes, which is a number game, and maybe cards, because cards have the idea of suits, and Mahjong has this concept of suits. There are 3 different kinds of tiles. Again, they have this beautiful character, crack, then they have bamboo, bam, and then they have the dots. So you can make all kinds of configurations. You can match them up, and so you can, and they have to run like 2, 4, 6, so you just go after the 2s, those things with number 2, those things with number 4, those things with number 6, or 1, 3, 5. It's a wonderful game of playing with numbers, and I love to play with numbers, and I think that's part of the fascination. And you can play it endlessly. I mean, some people like to play cards endlessly. This one, I think, is much more of a thinking game, because you have to have a great deal of strategy. Because in a sense, you have to not only be watching what you have, but you have to watch what the other people also have, so that you get, because what happens with me as a novice when I play this game is I will pick one of these patterns in the beginning of the game, and then to my consternation, some of my playing partners there are also going after the same suit, and I find myself locked out. And that's maybe because I'm a novice, but that happens often. So that it takes a lot of strategy to kind of plan what you want to go after, and then to go ahead and follow through on that. So it is really very good of a kind of a testing game. And then they introduce, not only do we have these beautiful tiles, we have things like flowers, and they have in the tiles pictures of flowers. We have this concept of the dragon, very, again, kind of Asian kind of concept. And so we kind of pull it all together. So when you go in a place like, if you went to Chinatown, any Chinatown in New York or Philadelphia or Washington, Boston, and you go around, you see maybe a little public park, you will see men playing Mahjong. If you happen to go to Florida in the winter, and you go to some senior center, you'll find lots and lots of, almost always women, playing Mahjong. And if you want to play Mahjong, or if you want to learn how to play it, one suggestion is there are senior centers, you know, all over the area, whether it's in Groton or Westerly or Stonington. If you go to the senior centers, you'll probably be able to find out if they have a Mahjong games that they play, and whether or not you could come on in and sort of learn the game. You do play for money. It's a nominal amount of money. We play for quarters, so you know, you're not going to break the bank playing this game. But it is a kind of, you've got to constantly be paying attention. So if you're half asleep, it's not going to work. And that's the marvel of it. Constantly playing, because you'll set yourself up, you'll get 13 tiles to begin with. You'll set yourself up, and then you will play a little bit, and you'll discover, oh my goodness, I won't be able to follow through on that one. So I got to quickly change my strategy and go after something else, some other kind of suit. And what I love is that it's just fun to touch them and feel them. This is a gorgeous set. You know, if you go out and buy a set right now, that you probably won't find anything like this. But these are lovely, lovely sets, and all of them do come with these wonderful characters, whether it's the crack, which literally means character, or the bamboo, or the dots. You'll see how intricate they are, and so they're fun just to look at and to play with. So you have to keep an eye and watch carefully. Now, I call this directions, because east, west, north, south. They call it winds. Winds, of course, is much more reflective of a kind of Asian attitude towards life itself. And for a while, I did actually, once upon a time, work for the China Institute in New York City, and this was something that men used to play, and not women. I don't know why. Maybe because of the gambling aspect. I don't know. But in America, you don't see too many men playing this game. You just see women playing this game. So, viewers, if you play Mahjong and you get a chance to see this show, tell me, contact me, and let me know what is your theory how an ancient Chinese game, which is still played to this day by Chinese and Japanese and Korean men, how that came to become such a passion of originally Jewish women, and then later on, you know, all kinds of women, but not men in America. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Everybody likes to play cards, but this is not a game. Its diversion from its original ancestry is kind of fascinating. So I'm looking for my viewers to come and tell me, what do they think is the origins of this phenomenon? How did it come to be? Now, it is true that in the 1930s, this National Mahjong League, who is the group that sponsors these cards that come out every year with the different patterns that you can follow, that they were originally a bunch of Jewish women. I'm not sure that's true today. And this group has kind of like a depository of Mahjong sets from way back when. So if you actually had an old Mahjong set and you were wondering if you lost a few tiles here or there, if you could get them replaced, you can actually contact them, and they have lots of like little tiles all over the place, I guess. A room full of tiles, if you can imagine. And then you can find out whether your set, they happen to have any missing pieces. So that's kind of an interesting offset. Now, they're not the only organization, my understanding is, today that's involved in these cards and stuff, but they are the original. And my card, for example, which is listed with 2014, and it has, if you can see it, the Chinese characters for 2014. So they keep very much this Asian concept. And it's their 77th year being in business. So they started out in 1937. So it's fascinating about that. And then also, if you want, the rules are here. But the best way to learn any game, and especially any intricate game, is to play with people who have compassion for you and have lots of patience, and don't worry too much about making sure that you follow the rules and dot the I's and cross the T's, at least in the beginning. Later, as you become more sophisticated. So there are lots of people who are out there who have maybe stories about their families, ladies in their families playing Mahjong. So I can always remember that my mother's routine was in this beach community, first in Far Rockaway, and then later in Atlantic Beach, is that she would get up and go, rain or shine, to her beach club, which opened on Memorial Day and closed a week after Labor Day, and to go to this beach club because the prime purpose really was, okay, she did swim, she was a great swimmer, so she would swim in the morning and then she'd come out and then she would actually change her bathing suit into something else because she had a cabana, and they had those cabana boys that literally came and opened up your locker and to put your chair out for you. And then she would have her breakfast, and then the whole rest of the day, she would go ahead and play either cards or Mahjong. And so that's this whole idea of collections of women getting together, not in a senior center, because these people weren't always necessarily old enough for senior centers, getting together in their little cliques of people and playing this tile game, which actually is Asian in concept. So that's kind of a very interesting thing. You won't find sets like this. This is kind of old. The case is old. You can just about imagine that it has traveled many, many places in its lifetime to go to lots and lots of games. And so we love to play with this particular game. And you can find, and I suggest people to give a game like this a chance because it's an opportunity to really keep that noggin working. And so people out there who, particularly people who might like cards or might be intrigued by number combinations, should give this game a chance. And you can learn it quickly. It's not something that takes a lot of time to learn, because the rules are, you can learn the rules as you get along, and sort of, you can start to play without knowing all the rules, and then as you break the rules, your partners will tell you what the right thing to do is, and you'll get better and better at it. And the intriguing thing about it is that because it's so centered on this number combination, you're just constantly adding, and in your head, you're constantly thinking about how I make these patterns, and making patterns is a good way to keep those gray cells really going after, just functioning well. So it's something for anyone. You certainly don't have to be a senior citizen. You don't have to be retired to actually learn the game. And then you'll find people, young people, old people will like this game, and you can find companionship in getting together and actually having an opportunity to play this game. So I tell you how generally it works is that it's usually played with 4 people. In some places it actually can be played with 3, but generally it's played with 4 people. And all of the tiles are put out on the table, face down, so you don't see them. And each person gets 13 tiles, and it's done in a very elaborate fashion. So they're each one of these contraption things here has a little kind of like a gate that goes across it, and you line up all the tiles divided by 4 into this pattern, and then you are given 13. The first person to go gets the 14th. So now again, in the Chinese version, which is played today, this is something that they don't use. This is some kind of adaptation that we have, maybe not only in America, but among the Jewish women who started using it in America. This is how they adapted this very ancient Chinese game. And then you just pick up as if you would in a card game. You pick up the tiles and you throw out one just as you do in a card game. And then you try to create the patterns. And it's not the patterns like the simple patterns in cards. It's a prescribed number of patterns. So for example, if I look at the numbers 2, 4, 6, 8, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 6, 7 different variations on this same pattern. So the variations have to do not so much with the numbers, but the different suits. Do I want to go with dots? Do I have to go with the characters? Do I have to go with the bamboo, the bomb? So that it's shifting and changing how you use these characters. So it is actually fascinating. And then they have the introduction to make things a little bit more complicated. Beside the suits that you have like you might have in cards, then you have this introduction of the winds. So you have the north, south, east, and west. You have this idea of dragons. And to make it fun, you have a wild card, which you can use anywhere along the way. And that's basically how the game is played. And it's a really kind of a real social phenomena that you find among women in this country. Now I just started out just a few months ago. Now I'm not only playing with Jewish women, so it's expanded out, although it remains, I think, primarily still among Chinese men. That's all that kind of plays it, but that's it. This is Mahjong, so go out and get yourself an opportunity to learn how to play Mahjong. Some of these cases can be very expensive and elaborate, so I don't own a Mahjong set. I don't know what happened to my mother's and my aunt's Mahjong sets. These are the kinds of things that you can, as the person that I play with who has this set, is the kind of thing that you can actually hand down to someone as long as you can continue to keep the 144 different tiles. So that is the fascinating game of Mahjong. So I absolutely recommend that people give it a try. It's a lot more fun than cards. It's a lot harder than cards. You won't lose a lot of money, and you get kind of a nice kind of companionship that you get with people who you regularly can play with. And so again, if you want to learn, my suggestion is, if you don't know anyone who plays and will kind of let you into their little community, is to go actually to the senior centers in and around Groton. Has some Mahjong. There's ones in Westerly. There's other communities around. Wherever there's a senior center, there's probably somebody who, beside playing cards, might be playing Mahjong. And so it'd be an opportunity for you to kind of learn a new game. And as for me, I mean, I've been around Mahjong since I was a kid, but it took me decades to finally say, well, I saw this game for years, for decades, really. Let's take this opportunity to finally learn. And I think, like some people get hooked on cards, this is a very, you become quite passionate about this kind of game. It's something that kind of sucks you up, and then you become addicted to it. You want to keep on playing it. People play it every single day. And I think that it has that kind of allure to it, because number one, it's kind of pretty to play with. Unlike, a set of cards, you can put your hands and touch it and feel it, and it's kind of a nice, pleasurable kind of thing about that. And also, it keeps your head straight, and you really have to kind of concentrate and figure it out. And I like it. It's a great strategy game. So we want to thank the inventors, whoever they might be in China, who created this game, and then did spread it all over Asia. And then eventually, I guess, in the 20th century in America, it came to become a part of a completely different culture. So, again, the mystery. Why, how did an ancient Chinese game played primarily by Chinese men, also played by Japanese and Korean, which has a real gambling aspect to it, become adapted and adopted by a completely different set of people here in, not only in America, but I guess if you go to other places you'll see it, but by this very different cultural group. It's an interesting thing, and it talks about, at least in theory, about how very different things in our lives and in our communities change and become adapted by different kinds of people. I'll give you another example. Some games that used to be played by Native Americans here, like something like lacrosse, becomes something that becomes a passion among a completely different group of people. So that's interesting about just how different cultures can meet with a certain kind of phenomena, like a game, and then change it and adapt it to their cultural needs. So that's a fascinating lesson for today. So I hope you'll take an opportunity and learn the game of Mahjong, and then contact me. You can contact me at GraysonHarriet@gmail.com, or you can contact the studio and tell me two things. One, that you gave it a try and you decided that you liked it, or you didn't like it, or if you have suggestions for me about how this evolution came about. How does a game like Mahjong come from a different part of the world and become not really radically changed, but somewhat changed, and have a whole new life in a completely different place? So what is the mystery, how an ancient Chinese game became the passion of Jewish women in America? So that's the question. The other thing I thought I would talk about today is that one of the things that I do, I'm always interested in lots and lots of things. That's Harriet Grayson for you. So besides learning Mahjong at a very old age after having seen it as a kid and knowing all about it, it just sort of one day I said, well, I want to learn. Somebody asked me, would you like to learn Mahjong? And I said, yes, I'd like to learn Mahjong. And so that became my desire to go ahead and learn this game. And the more I learn it and the more I play it, is the more I like it. So that's the kind of person that I am as your host and producer. So some time ago, I had the great opportunity, with the support of this studio, to do a documentary on Storm Sandy and its impact on my much beloved Misquamicut Beach. And we call the documentary Aftermath because it really is the destruction and rebuilding on Misquamicut Beach after Superstorm Sandy hit. And I did a documentary, which actually I filmed the rebuilding of that beautiful beach. And if you have the opportunity to get down to Misquamicut State Beach and the Misquamicut area, the businesses and the other beaches that are there, you'll see that you'll see as if it looked like nothing actually happened. Actually, the buildings will look a lot nicer because they've actually been, at the minimum, if they haven't been completely rebuilt, they have in fact been refurbished in one way or another. So that event sparked my interest in going ahead and over the course of a year filming how that big storm and its humongous impact on our westerly community, Misquamicut Beach, really, that's the only place that really got completely damaged, how that actually got rebuilt. And I had on the documentary some key stakeholders in the rebuilding of that beach community, and that was the members of the Westerly Pawcatuck Chamber of Commerce and the Misquamicut Beach Association, which is their Chamber of Commerce down there at the beach. I also had a local homeowner whose house was also destroyed by, not completely destroyed, but damaged by Storm Sandy. And I had on Chris DiPaolo, who was the station manager of a local radio station, who was on the broadcasting while the rest of us didn't have any lights and electricity, and were wondering what should we do? Should we leave our house? Is our street going to be flooded? Are we ever going to get electricity again? So we had him on the show, and then I followed up, and at the closing of the documentary, I talked to Dave Prescott from Save the Bay. And we're talking about the example of the destruction of Misquamicut Beach as only one potential possibility in this era of climate change. So what is the future of our beautiful coastal communities? Is what happened after Storm Sandy just the beginning of something that might become much more of a problem? You know, and as I speak to you today and as we're filming, there's actually a huge two, not one, but two hurricanes approaching Hawaii, which interestingly enough actually doesn't really have a lot of hurricanes. Two hurricanes, one right after the other, about to hit Hawaii. Is it just freak accident? Is it just whatever happened is just a random event? Or is it part of a larger pattern of climate change? I'm of the belief it's of a larger climate change issue rather than just some freaky random event. And on the documentary, Dave and I talked about what is the future? How much risk are we willing to take in order to protect and save and keep and maintain some of our coastal communities? And I had the great fortune of having it broadcast on this station, as well as the public access station in Westerly, Rhode Island. And then I had the good fortune of contacting the Westerly Public Library, and through the library we had a showing of it on July 23rd to a full house of people who came to see the documentary. They may not have known it was 1 hour and 20 minutes, and some of them left before, but also then to finish watching the documentary, and Dave Prescott and I took questions about what is the future of our coastal communities. And so we talked about how much risk are we willing to take. If anyone knows that Atlantic Avenue area, they know that it's just this little barrier islands, really, that are very susceptible to Mother Nature. And we talked about that in comparison to what happened to Napatree Point during the hurricane of 1938 and its complete destruction, and the fact that the community voluntarily decided not to rebuild. So that the area of Watch Hill, in fact, is still a bustling community. But Napatree Point, which is a barrier island, has never been rebuilt. So there's lots of things people can do, and the question is, what should we do? And Dave and I were encouraging people to get involved in the process. The state of Rhode Island is in this large process trying to figure out what are we going to do about not only Musquamaca Beach, but the entire coastline of Rhode Island. And it also, in terms of what they decide to do and thinking about, will certainly affect the coastal areas of Connecticut. So I'm always looking for more opportunities. We had a really nice, lively discussion. Nobody walked away thinking that they had all the answers, but we had an opportunity for a lot of different people just from the town, who came to listen and to give opinions, and we really, really welcome that opportunity. So now we're going to show this this documentary in Rhode Island, and I have the and so people who might be seeing this and who missed the seeing aftermath, either on this TV station or in Westerly Public Library, to give it another chance, because one of the great things about having it at the library was the opportunity to have discussion. So the next time this documentary, Aftermath, will be shown will be on August 25th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Wood Pawtucket Watershed Association, and they are located at 203 Acadia Road in Hope Valley, Rhode Island. And they are an environmental group who has been very nice and very cooperative in giving me this opportunity to show the documentary again. And I'm looking forward to having some conversations with the University of Connecticut at Avery Point to again perhaps show the documentary there as well. The more people who see it, the better, not only for me, but I think for the whole discussion of what are we going to do about the future of our coastal communities, because it's a really big issue. It's, you know, they worry about earthquakes and mudslides in California, but the entire East Coast, from New England going down to Florida, this is a big issue. I mean, climate change is kind of a scary kind of thing, and it takes some planning and thinking about what are we going to do. I don't believe that Storm Sandy was this freak accident that's never going to happen again. I don't know if it's a 100-year storm, a 50-year storm, a 10-year storm, maybe it's a 5-year storm. Because the year right after Storm Sandy, things were really calm. This particular beach season so far has been calm up here, and we'll see what happens. But we need to be prepared. One of the important lessons of what happened with Storm Sandy is the state beach, Musquamaca Beach, was built in the 1990s up to code, and it survived pretty much intact. The town beach, which Westerly Town Beach, with its little pavilion, was not built up to code, and it sustained tremendous damage. So the question is, will these things kind of be freak accidents, or we have them over and over again? So the houses that have been rebuilt have been, for the most part, now being much more up to code. So they're above the sand level, they're on stilts to get them high off the ground. And we can, supposedly then sustain greater damage. The other thing that's been happening is that our salt marshes that lie usually behind our beachfront have gotten, certainly with Storm Sandy, inundated with all that sand that had been on the beach. It landed up in the marshes, and so there's an effort that's going to go on to go ahead and do some dredging of some of these marshes, so to protect and keep alive those ponds, which is so important for the whole ecosystems of the beach communities. So these are issues that need to be discussed, and so that was the purpose behind Mine Making Aftermath, which is just one example of what can possibly happen. And then the Army Corps of Engineers had come in, and after the destruction, and actually something like 2,200, it was just an amazing number of truckloads of industrial sand were replaced and put on the state beach. And so it has a nice feel. It's a lot wider, and if you have a chance to kind of walk on it, it doesn't feel as nice and soft as the beach had, but it does look a lot better, and it actually can hold a lot more people. And what they did, the Army Corps of Engineers, was go back to the original design of Misquamicut State Beach and recreate that design in this past year. So again, I'm looking forward to many more opportunities to show this documentary and to get public opinion, to get a lively dialogue of how do we protect something that's so economically important to the state of Rhode Island and the city of and the town of Westerly, and at the same time be respectful of the fact that Mother Nature just doesn't stop. She's going to do what she's going to do, and we are just going to be watching, or we can be a lot smarter and start planning for what we have to do. And I certainly also would like to thank the Westerly Sun, which gave me some press about it, as another way to reinforce the idea that we should have some real discussion about this. It's always the first instinct when something tragic happens. Luckily, nobody died in Rhode Island, although we did have quite a number of deaths along the eastern coast when Storm Sandy hit. We just had one person that was injured. Is to continue to have these discussions. Should we? One possibility. Should we move all permanent commercial development up the street to kind of like 1A? Is that feasible? Does that make any sense? Should we just have at Atlantic Avenue simply temporary structures that come in for the season and then simply just kind of like a big truck and they come, some very fancy kinds of trucks are available, some fancy kinds of porta potties are now available. Should we just have those kinds of events, and then at the end of the season people close up and they go away? Could we have t-shirt shops and flip-flop stores? Can they exist in that same kind of mindset where you pack up at the end of the season and you simply don't have a permanent structure you leave behind? So those are kinds of very important issues that is that practical? Do we really want to consider it? And so I think that in a democracy, citizens should get involved, and the easiest way to get involved is through local kinds of issues that have importance to you. Because don't think that there isn't a cost involved. The federal government bears a cost when these things happen and then rebuilt. The state involves a cost, and all the townspeople involve a cost, because if there's a lot of damage or things have to be redone, generally it comes out of your property taxes. So these are all kinds of issues that need to be thought about, even though the first impulse is always, let's go back and do it again. And so we have to see whether or not that makes a lot of sense. So again, I encourage people to come out and join me in this discussion, because we'd love to have some public officials come. I invite them if they want. And here we go, Aftermath, the Superstorm Sandy story, Monday, August 25th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Wood-Pawcatuck Watershed Association, which is a local environmental group out there in Hope Valley, Rhode Island. Stick it into your GPS, and I'm sure you'll be able to find your way there. There is kind of limited seating. It's not like the library where 100 people can come, so we can only have about 30, but I'd certainly like 30 people to show up, and we can start the discussion again, because it's not finished. We should be having this discussion over and over again. And what Dave Prescott has been kind of asking people to do from Save the Bay, which is a local environmental group, is to become part of a, certainly in Rhode Island, a state effort to engage the public in meetings with experts who talk about what's going on, what's going to happen to the coasts, what's going to happen to these communities, to engage with these officials and these experts and these scientists to figure out, do we have a plan? And we should have a plan. We should definitely have a plan. A lot more than simply when you're driving on Route 1 and there's an evacuation plan, how to get away from the coast, but a lot bigger plan about what are we going to do for the next 10 years and 20 years, and for my children and grandchildren, about how we're going to keep these communities vibrant, understanding that there is a tremendous economic involvement in this community. Mesquamaca Beach and Mesquamaca State Beach are the largest revenue producers for the state of Rhode Island. And Mesquamaca itself, because of hotel taxes and restaurant taxes, produces and generates a huge amount of money, not only for the town of Westerly, but the whole state of Rhode Island. So there's no mistaking the fact that when you just can't make fait accompli, decide that you do it this way or you do it that way, but rather to engage the community, the business people, the homeowners who have homes right there at the beach, the rest of the town, the taxpayers, and the state itself, to come up with a good plan. And this also involves Connecticut. I'm not as familiar with the activities that are going on, but certainly you can engage. It's a political year in Connecticut, as it is in Rhode Island. So you can start to engage the people who are running for office and ask them, well, what are our plans to save and to protect our coastal communities? You who want to be my public official, what is your opinion? Or do you have an opinion? And how are we going to involve the citizenry in getting a good plan so that the coastal communities can flourish as places for people to live and for people to work and for people to have businesses, but at the same time recognizing that Mother Nature is going to do what Mother Nature wants to do. We have been experiencing, certainly in this coastal communities, and I'm sure it's true across the entire eastern coast, is the shifting of the sands. When I had Dave and I were talking about it, we were talking about Napatree Point. So if you think about 1938 and you look at Napatree, or 1939 after the hurricane hit, and you see this outline of this barrier island, and then you come back in 2014 and you take a look and you say, oh, well, you know, it looks the same. Well, it hasn't been the same. In fact, it's shifted something like a foot. And it's not visible to the eye, but if you actually looked at coastal maps and study them over time, you could see that this shifting is going on. The beaches, because of what goes on with Mother Nature and with storms, it replenishes itself and then it gives it up. Part of what has happened in coastal Rhode Island in terms of like Atlantic Avenue and the continuation of those shoreline roads and businesses and houses is that Mother Nature is constantly shifting that sand. And we put up barriers because we want to protect things. We put up hurricane walls. But over time, those things can't work. Now, one could say, when we look at Mesquamaca, wow, it took about 50 years for the beach to be, with Storm Sandy, completely destroyed. So maybe with the Corps of Engineers, Army Corps of Engineers, having replenished the beach, that it'll last 50 years. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we're in an area when we have this climate change where things that lasted 50 years will no longer last 50 years. Maybe we're going to have more frequent storms. Maybe they won't be so frequent, but they'll be more intense. And so what are we going to do? And I, as a trained urban planner, not a coastal planner, but an urban planner, say better to be prepared and to have some plans lined up in terms of what we're going to do. How are we going to protect our communities and these gorgeous beaches, and at the same time recognizing we have to protect the livelihood of lots and lots of people. So that's the story of my documentary, and my next documentary will be furthering what I did first with Aftermath. I'm going to go out and, because the Army Corps of Engineers is continuing to do work with our coastal areas. Now I understand they're going to be doing some work on the marshes, and so I'm going to follow that and get some information perhaps from some experts and figure out, why are they doing what they're going to do, and is this actually going to protect our beaches. And so that's my next thing. I'm going to go out. They're also going to be doing something in Narragansett Bay, Little Narragansett Bay, which is actually between Connecticut and Rhode Island. They're going to be doing some work in Stonington. So I'm going to follow those events and keep tracking them. So I'll be going out with my trusty camera and seeing what things develop, and as the basis of that, create my next documentary. Because I am a beach bum, as I was telling you earlier from the games of Mahjong. I started out living by a beach community for 15, 20 years, and always thinking that that was the greatest kind of living that anybody could have. And so I come to Westerly, and I think that's it. Living by the ocean is the greatest thing that anyone can ever experience. It's this magical place. Well, I think not there, but here, Mother Nature might be trying to play some tricks on us. And so maybe it's magical, but we got to do a lot more things to keep it magical. I know that places that I had grown up with, the areas that had done some real kinds of planning, where they had put up barriers, little actual extra barrier islands in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean to protect the coasts. They, like these Atlantic beach communities where I used to go to the beach clubs, they were protected by Storm Sandy. They were relatively free of major damage. But a next door community, Long Beach, New York, which is a beautiful beach community, it didn't want to do that. It had a boardwalk, and it didn't want to do anything to put up or make any changes. It was great surfing that they had in Long Beach. And Long Beach had some major, major destruction placed on it as a result of Storm Sandy. So there are things that we know that can work, although they can remain controversial. I mean, there is nothing that we do that doesn't come with some dissent and some controversy when we're talking about how do we save the future of these beach communities. It's not any different than the controversies that we have about energy production in America. Everything that you do has some calculated risk, and we need to kind of balance what those risks are to kind of make sure that we save the integrity of our beaches, because the beach bum, I need to be able to have a place for my children and my grandchildren to come in summer. So we need to do our special best to go ahead and protect it. So again, I offer my program out there, and I'm talking to other groups. You don't have to be on the coastline to be able to see this. I mean, Misquamica Beach is beloved by people up in Springfield, Massachusetts, and Hartford, Connecticut, and all of those environments. So, let people know, and I'd be happy to bring up my documentary there, because I think it's sort of a soft touch in terms of climate change and what are we going to do about what happens when we have a disaster like that. So you can contact me at graysonharriet@gmail.com and let me know if there are places and people who would like to see this documentary. I'm talking to people as we speak in Norwich, and they are thinking about maybe we would show the documentary up there. Another opportunity just to get the word out, to get people thinking. That's what I'm really interested in doing. So if you have an idea, if you have a place that wants to have it, if we want to have a conversation about it, by all means, please contact me. I'm also always, when we talk about, now we'll go back to talking about close up with our Mahjong, I want to let people know that I want to know the secret, the mystery of why a game that started out in Asia became such a big hit in America among Jewish women? Let me have your facts. So, you know, it's like the, from Asia, from China, a great, great power, couple of thousand years of different dynasties, the people that actually gave us an adaptation from noodles in China to spaghetti in Italy. There is that idea that the Silk Road from Asia across the continents, that there is ways that we can change and adopt and adapt different kinds of cultural icons, and they then become our icons. It's often lost in the translation that playing Mahjong is actually an Asian game, even though it's got lots and lots of Asian characters and symbols all over the game. So again, let me know what you think. And if you have some ideas about guests that you think will be on my show, let me know. I'd be happy to. I like to have all kinds of different kinds of folks on. We're going to have in the next few weeks, we're going to have as my guests, we're going to have I love poets. We're going to have some more poets come on. We're going to have some poetry. We're going to have a guy who's going to talk to us about American roots music, and he's going to play for us again. If you had the great opportunity to see our show with the Norwich Arts Council, we had on a woman who played a flute, I'm sorry, a harp, not the harp that you see in a concert hall, but in a Celtic harp. And so we're always interested in having some musicians come on, so we're going to have them on. And then we're going to have on my next show, I'm going to have a woman who does custom framing, because there's an artistry to framing. And she considers herself to be a craftswoman and an artist, and so she's going to be on my show. So we have a variety, an eclectic group of folks that we have on the show to kind of show you what's out there and what's available. And so if you represent a little museum, Mystic Aquarium doesn't need my help, but if you have a little museum out there, historic house, if you're a musician, a poet, a visual artist of some kind, and you want to tell us and share with us the stuff that you're doing, by all means, please contact me. Again, it's Grayson Harriet at gmail.com, and let me know about different groups out there, because we're always interested in having them come and see. The other thing I should let you know is that we are also this studio is a nonprofit organization itself, and we are always interested in having people come and learn how to be volunteers here and learn how to do some camera work and learn a little about editing. And we welcome young people in particular who might think it'd be very cool to learn how to operate a camera. So schools out there, camps out there, people who are out there who have young people involved with them, we are interested in having you come. I mean, if there are senior citizens out there who would like to do a little volunteering, maybe learn a little camera work, learn about lighting and sound and the control panel, we're more than welcome to have you come along and learn something. So this is a public access show, and this is a public access studio where we are very much involved in engaging with the public. So let us know about any programming you would like to see, and if you would like to learn about how this stuff gets done, by all means, come and visit with us. So this is Harriet Grayson, and I just want to kind of recap. Please join me on August 25th for my showing of Aftermath, the great documentary on the consequences of Superstorm Sandy. Monday, August 25th, 6 to 8 p.m. at the Wood Pawcatuck Watershed Association, a nice little environmental group there in Hope Valley, Rhode Island. I want to thank you if you actually had the opportunity to see me and my documentary at the Westerly Public Library on this past July 23rd. And we're always looking for more shows and more opportunities to show my documentary. So this is Harriet Grayson, and I do want to say, as a summer leisure activity, everybody should get exposure and learn about Mahjong, a wonderful, wonderful game for all people, all mindsets. So I want to thank you for joining me today. We have a very busy schedule coming up into the fall, and I want you to tell all your friends and family about this show, and give us great suggestions about things that we might do. about people who might want to be on my show, and for people who might want to see Aftermath at a different location. Thank you very much for coming and watching, and hope you're enjoying your summer in our beautiful coastal areas. Thank you for joining me.